Hello and welcome to another episode of the Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and tonight I'm very happy and excited and honored to have my friend James Frosch of Family Fungi on with us. So, James, he is a really awesome and intelligent and fun and smart guy who I've gotten to know over the last handful of months. I was able to be on a couple vibrants with him back in like September-ish time, and I've gotten to know his wife over that same amount of time, and I am just so excited to have them in my life. And I'm excited to have James on because he has so much wisdom to share, and he is a husband and a father. He's a permaculturist and an alchemist on a mission to provide himself, his family, and his community with potent and healthful mushroom extractions, growing supplies, and organic produce. So I'm super just jazzed to talk to him because I've never gotten a chance to really hear him expand on all the knowledge he has with the mushroom kingdom. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. And if you all could help me in welcoming James to the show. Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
thanks
my
for
friend.
having me.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for being here. I'm very excited for this one. And it'll be a nice little weave that we can get on with. So, how's
Yeah,
your
that was
evening
it.
going?
Oh, wonderful. I'm having some mushroom tea and with ginseng. I have cordyceps and ginseng with a little bit of black tea. And I really like drinking this while I'm speaking with anyone, especially through podcast form, because you can feel the heat from the like the pressure of feeling yourself being watched, and this really helps with that autonomic response, and really helps with bringing yourself back into balance and not feeling so on the spot. It just like it helps you slide into the groove of it really easily. So I really dig working with ginseng and especially cordyceps, and that's one of the ones that I've been getting more familiar with over the past couple of years.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. I love that how we can find these little tips for ourselves when we're in these situations because yeah, there's eyes on us, there's ears on us, and it can feel like you're in a little bit of a pressure cooker in the moment of it sometimes too, and it's just something. It's like a muscle, you start to get to strengthen it and what have you, but to find these little things that help us along the way, that's the beauty. So I'm glad you know that. Because yeah, we have to be able to find these things for ourselves because a lot of times other people don't know exactly what will work for us. So when we find what works for us, it's a good thing. So
Yeah, and this particular mushroom ally, Cordyceps militaris, has over the past decade been introduced to the West more holistically. It had typically only been known about as Ophiocordyceps sinensis, which is the caterpillar fungus from the Tibetan range in the Himalayas. And so people knew about it from as this mythical mushroom that helps Sherpas ascend the heights um, of Everest and of these and to make the trans Himalayan trade route work is the usage of these mushrooms, and they kind of use it as like their own biohacking for increasing oxygen production, increasing the oxygenation of your cells, and also I'm talking about reducing stress and cortisol. I think we might get some internet interruptions.
okay, it's okay. We'll flow with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
You just let me know what part I'm leaving off on.
Okay. We'll do. Cordyceps. So I mean, I've never actually like worked with it. I've never made medicine with it, but I've seen it. So that's the one. It's like it's orange, right? Kind of.
Yeah, that's right.
And it almost looks like kind of coral, like under the sea to me.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
It's an entomopathogenic fungus that it has to have it in nature. It has to have an insect host to reproduce,
Mm.
but um, specifically Ophiocordyceps sinensis, that one has to have the host. But Cordyceps militaris, which was they're thought to be the same species, but there's been some more specific delineation between them, that Cordyceps militaris occurs in the U.S., specifically in the Appalachian Range, and it can be found throughout the East Coast and into some, in mostly temperate areas. It likes cooler soils. But it's one that's been found to be able to be cultured and grown on grains. So grains are like the main thing, like right behind me, or over here, are a bunch of grain spawn bags. And so I typically use like something that's gluten-free, oats or millet or sorghum. Sorghum is one of my favorite ones. But you use that to expand the mass of the mushroom mycelium so that you could go to a final fruiting substrate, which is typically hardwoods. But with this particular mushroom, cordyceps, they grow on grain their whole life and fruit off of it. And so you harvest the fruit bodies. But as we'll start speaking about as we go into the PowerPoint, the difference between fruit body and mycelium are, it's important to know them, but really there's this thing in the mushroom community that's trying to assign value, more value to the fruit body over the mycelium, just because, in my opinion, just because the fruit bodies are harder to cultivate. It's a more lengthy process, whereas if you're just cultivating mycelium, you can allow it to grow out in 2 to 8 weeks, depending on the species, and then you can dehydrate it, powder it, and use it as a supplement. But they have different compounds because they play different roles.
That's awesome. I was so excited when you sent me the PowerPoint and that you have a slide on that, because I think that a lot of times, and even I've probably done it, but like you say mycelium and people just figure that that means the mushroom. You know what I mean? I think that there's like all language of all types thrown around all the time, and a lot of times people might not know what they're actually really saying. And so I'm very excited for you to get into that. And so before we jump into the slides, I just want you to kind of give us a little rundown about how you got started working with mushrooms and how they came into your life and what motivated you to start Family Fungi and offer these beautiful mushrooms to people.
Yeah, so it started, honestly, as a kid, I was homeschooled and I spent a lot of time outdoors, but neither of my parents knew very much about mushrooms. So my education growing up was that if you pick a mushroom up, you need to put it down and go wash your hands. And it was it was a mysterious area of my life until around my mid-teen years. I started to go hopping in cow pastures and picking mushrooms and going to get psilocybe mushrooms and eating them with friends, and then starting to open my mind to this experience that I had no grounding for. Like I didn't really have a mentor or a guru or anything like that to help me find the way with it. But that was my introduction into mushrooms, was to start exploring my spiritual inner world. And around the time that I started college, I started to use mushrooms more exclusively for medicine. I got introduced to shiitakes as being an incredibly potent medicinal mushroom, and reishi. And these two mushrooms mystified me. I was absolutely overtaken, but for whatever reason, job security was the thing that was being pushed on me in high school, was go get a job that you're not going to lose, basically. And so I initially went to school I initially went to university to become a nurse. And so I was in nursing school for about 2 years, and I found that that's not what I wanted to do. I had 1 semester of a nutrition course, which didn't teach you anything about nutrition. And in fact, the instructor, her slide, like we had slides and all this stuff. It was actually an online course, and I took that so that I could take more hours that semester. But she had slides that were blatantly wrong, and whenever I pointed it out, she argued with me. And I'm like, look, I'm referencing the book. I'm referencing your slides, and you're telling me that I'm wrong. I'm trying to figure out why I got a low score on this online quiz, and I'm looking at the answers, and they're clearly wrong. But I found that I wasn't going to be as good of a caretaker at that point in my life I as the job was going to require me to be. And so I took about a half semester off, and the second year that I was in school, I started working for GNC, the supplement retailer, and this is where I got introduced to herbs in a much more in-depth way because I was around them all day. But the job was soul sucking because it was a sales job, and I didn't know that. Whenever I started working, I thought that I was going to help people with their health, which is what I really truly felt the calling for with being a nurse at all, was helping people with their health. But then you get a nutrition course that doesn't teach you about nutrition. You start getting molded and squared away to be what the pharma system needs out of you, not what people need out of you, not what you have to be and ascend to as a caregiver. And so I took a semester off, and I ended up working my way up into middle management of GNC. And while I was there, I was teaching myself about the herbs. There was more information working at GNC about how these herbs work in your body than I was getting out of nursing school. Nursing school didn't even reference herbs. It didn't really reference medications either. But at the level of schooling that I had completed, it wasn't really getting into much of anything. But I started to discover that as I was looking at these herbs, that we had a history with them. It was part of our culture, but we seemed to be taken away from it. And that as I learned more about different herbs and different mushrooms, that people around the world are still using them. And I really got into the old Soviet bloc nations were having to use herbs and herbalism and traditional folk medicines because they were sanctioned and cut off from the West. So they didn't really have the pharmaceuticals that were being developed available to them. And it just opened me up to a whole new area of being able to care for oneself instead of looking for and deferring that to an outside authority to be the one to take care of you, but rather that a prophylactic approach is the way to be healthy. You don't put food into your mouth that is full of poison. Even no matter how delicious it is, you don't do that to yourself. You have to look at every meal as being medicine and energy. And I've gone into this in some other venues, but that we're taking the light of the Creator and using it to inform ourselves so that we can use that light as information to decode our life story, which is in our DNA. And so if we're using crap, if we're putting crap in, we're getting crap out. You're only able to read the first couple chapters of your life story. And I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to know more than that. Mushrooms, from the very first time that I tripped with psychedelic mushrooms, it showed me that I had no idea what was going on here. And so in my 20s, I kept using mushrooms, psilocybe mushrooms. And at some point, after doing a lot of healing of myself, the mushrooms told me that our people are sick and this is what you're going to do. And within a few months, I had found a commercial scale cultivation course that I could go to learn more about growing mushrooms at scale, because I'd been doing it at a hobby level. I'd grown some oyster mushrooms, which are really easy to grow at home, and I'd grown psilocybe mushrooms. That's pretty much the entrance for a lot of folks with growing mushrooms, is that they had a profound mushroom trip, or maybe they just liked to grow psychedelic mushrooms, and so they continued doing that. But all mushrooms are medicinal, and they all have their place. And it's up to us to learn how to incorporate them in the times that we need them and before we need them. Again, a prophylactic approach is the way to remain healthy and to aid your body in the detox processes that are going to come. And so the mushrooms told me. That's how I got here. And I just keep listening. I tell people, they'll ask me like, oh, can I get something from you, like some medicinal mushroom product? I'm like, yeah, I'm on the mushrooms time though, so it'll take X amount of weeks to turn around. Or if I already have it, then I can make a product for someone. But I'm having to think months in advance and try to anticipate how to make something valuable that is medicinal for people. And that also, because I'm putting my labor energy into this, is going to give us some return. And so it's such a weird thing, because I don't do this for money, but it's just a part of the process that I have to have that energy exchange. Because if I can't be face to face with someone and exchange their labor with my labor, then that's our medium of exchange right now.
Totally. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for the download, because I've wanted to know, and even Jenny B in the chat said was hoping to hear James's origin tale. And yes, as was I, and I love hearing that the mushrooms chose you. Because that is how this stuff works. The divine practices that we're meant to have in these lifetimes, they end up coming to us in those ways. And I've often also found, talking to a lot of people in this community, talking to Mario, my man, myself included, we're people that went to college, but at one point realized it was either a sham, or we're like, what's going on here? Or we felt as though, speaking from Mario's perspective, finding as though he was like kind of able to teach classes better than a professor, or professors were asking him to come up and show what he knew, and all these things. And Rachel mentioned this same kind of thing when she went to art school, that she never actually completed it, because you're there and you're just like, what am I doing? Like, I feel like I could do this on my own. And I think there's people like that who have these bigger minds or more open hearts or something like that, that end up having those same experiences. So I guess I'm not too surprised that that happened to you as well. And that's not to say that people who have completed college and gone to grad school and didn't have any, quarrels about it aren't good thinkers or open minds or anything. But I've seen a pattern, and I had to acknowledge it, because
and to be honest, I didn't learn my lesson. I doubled down and went back to college for micro and molecular biology, and and went another 3 years. And whenever it came time for my concentration, it was bacteriology, virology, or some other research only, very very left brained sort of living. That I was like, do I want to suffer for this? I want to learn about mycology, and I thought that once I got enough credits, I'd be able to do this. But you guys don't even offer it as a course. I think they offered one course every other spring. And I was like, wait, what? How am I ever going to get out of school? How am I ever going to do what I want to do? And so I started teaching myself more in depth. I had learned to read through the lines of a lot of scholarly articles, because I was getting into my almost graduate studies, because I was like between degrees, but already I had enough for like half a degree here and like 3/4 there. But I was gonna have to go out of state to finish and like get a paper and a pat on the back, and I was like, wait, is this what I want? And I didn't. It was gonna be like $20,000 a semester, and I could not see it. Like luckily I had grants, and I had and I had a stipend to go to school, and I was being paid to go to school. So for me, it was too easy, and that was part of the problem, is that I was kind of being baited in, and being told how good I was doing. You're being a really good boy. You're hitting all the marks. Good job. And at a certain point, that wasn't it. I didn't want it. I didn't want the pats on the head or anything. And I saw that basically I was either going to be in academia the rest of my life, or I was going to be working in someone else's lab. And so now I reflect on it. I'm like, whoa, I built my own lab. Like, this is my space, and I've put what I can that I view valuable in here that isn't cost prohibitive, but I put the things in here that I want to use that can work for me to bring people the highest quality medicinals that I can make at this point. And with the support of my community, I've been able to just get better, to learn more, to be able to apply it. And it's funny. It's like you have to toss all the junk in the crucible, burn it up, and then whatever's left is the truth. You put all of the crud in there, and then whatever remains is gonna. You might get a gold nugget. You might just have to keep putting stuff in and burning off the dead wood.
Yep, that is so true. Gosh, that's awesome. I love where this is going already. And but I think we should pull up your presentation so you can really get into this nitty-gritty info about the mushrooms. So I'm going to pull this up here. And all right. So I'm going to give you the floor and allow you to weave around. And yeah, let's just jump into it.
Yeah, so fungi is its own kingdom. They really are the bridge between animals and plants. And if you're into evolutionary theory, then we're more closely related to fungi than we are to plants. We breathe oxygen and respire CO2, and fungi do the same thing. Whereas plants are our allies, that they take in our waste products and they give us back the life-bringing prana of oxygen. And so fungi, as you can see, are yeast and molds and mushrooms, and they're some of the most important alchemists in our realm because they make everything from delicious treats like breads and beer to the SCOBY is a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeasts. So there's your fungi coming together with the bacterial kingdom to bring about another symbiosis. And then cured meats can be aged with certain molds. Koji is used for making soy sauce. I mean, so many different things. Tempeh is another type of mold, and it's fermented soybean products. And then there's microbially derived enzymes, and these are really important for a lot of industry as a pre-treatment step for breaking down the cell wall of plants or of other fungi, because in the soil, in the ecological community, there is this constant ebb and flow. To some people, it can look like a warfare. There's antibiotics were derived from fungi, from aspergillus molds that were allegedly on a moldy orange or a cantaloupe or something in Chicago, whatever. We'll leave the history up for the folks that want to debate that. But we have been looking to nature for our medicine for so long, and we've just tried to take the material aspect of it and then just discard nature. And we can't do that. We see what that does 70 years down the line if we're intelligent enough to look back and go, wait a second, did we toss the baby out with the bathwater? And it seems that we have, and that we really need to be looking at these, especially antibiotic compounds. We need to be looking at them as something that is more of a probiotic. It can put bacteria into stasis to allow your body to come in and detoxify that region of your body. Because a lot of times people will think that bacteria is just in your gut, but it's not. Like, you are living soil. You, like, the breath was breathed into the dust, and the dust is animate. And so we have to view our body more as an ecosystem and less as pieces and parts, and that's just a digestive system, and that's just a heart, and they're not connected. I really like this this healer. I don't really know how he'd classify himself, but his name's Dr. Perry Nicholson, and he does a lot of lymphatic treatment for people and just shows people how to move their lymph. And there's more volume of fluid in your lymphatic system than in your cardiovascular system. It's our waste removal system, and to me, it draws to mind mycelium. The lymphatic system is the connecting system of your body that's alchemizing and taking wastes out and bringing nutrients in. Just like in the soils, you'll have mycorrhizal fungi that are taking wastes away from plants and breaking them down into something else, and remediating the environment, and then bringing up minerals that the roots of these plants cannot access. These fungi have such interesting enzymes that they can break down granite, they can dissolve minerals, and then give that to the plant in exchange for carbohydrates, for sugars that the plant's making from sunlight. And so it's more interesting to start to do the macro micro expression of how to view ourselves and view our relationship with our environment. And so, as I've mentioned a couple times, mycelium. Mycelium is the body of most fungi. Some fungi can exist unicellularly, so it can just be one cell, whereas mycelium is multicellular. And so mycelium is the body of the fungus for all intents and purposes. That's where all of the enzymatic and metabolic activity is taking place. And then the fruit body is just the reproductive organ. It is to fungi what a flower is to a plant. And that's not all cases. There are some fungi that are dimorphic. So one dimorphic yeast is Candida, and a lot of people are worried about Candida, or it's come to mainstream thought that it's not supposed to be here in our bodies, but everything has a role. It's just that we've created some sort of imbalance that we're seeing more of particular bacteria or yeasts expressed within our environment because we're putting ourselves out of balance. And so, like I said, it's mycelium is the vegetative state, and it's where all the enzymes are being produced. It's where all of the action's really happening. And you can go ahead to the next slide.
I love how you compare the mycelium to the lymphatic system, by the way, because even when I see mycelium in my head, like, I always think of just like the tendrils underneath the forest floor kind of thing. And that it looks very much like the lymphatic system. And yeah, love that comparison. Just wanted to say that before I move on.
Yeah. And just to kind of continue that line of thought, so we have lymph nodes, and the nodes are spread out throughout our body. And that happens in ecosystems too, where you'll have a more dense area of mycelium, and then the further out from that, it gets more stratified, and you'll have different layers, and it won't be you won't have the same like cell density. You won't be able to find the same amount of mass of mycelium, but it's still there, even in some desert environments. And it's super interesting. I don't want to get too far on a tangent of mushrooms that exist in the desert, but mushrooms can and do have a role in every niche in any ecosystem.
Heck yeah, man. I love this.
And so I really wanted to have a slide about the mycelium versus the fruit body, because there is a lot of snazzy marketing telling people that mycelium's crap. It's only fruit body that you need to get. But the mycelium is how the mushroom acquires its nutrition. So we bring the environment into ourselves to digest it, whereas the mushrooms go into the environment to digest it. So they have exometabolites, and these are different enzymes and acids that they put out into the environment to start breaking it down. Like oxalic acid is one of the byproducts that is used for chemoheterotrophs. So these are these fungi that use chemical bonds for energy, and these can be found growing on rocks. It's like if you find a line growing on a rock, that's actually a fungus and a bacteria symbiotically growing together. The fungus is a minor, and not like below 18, but it's a minor, and it's getting these minerals to bring up to exchange with this photosynthetic bacterium that's getting energy from the sun. And they're like, hey, look, we're cool. I'll give you some sugar. You give me some. You give me some minerals. You give me what I need to, like magnesium. If magnesium's locked up in the rock substrate, then that bacteria is not going to be able to go into that. But the mycelium can. It has extreme pressures at the tips of the hyphae, which are the very small filaments of mycelium. It has such extreme pressure that they can break through rock, and they're as strong as, if you've heard of plant roots breaking through concrete or cement, as strong as that and even stronger. And so they're at the tips of these hyphae. That's where they're putting out all of their enzymes and their acids to start breaking down the environment. They kind of like make a soup of it. It's super interesting. And they make a soup of it and then move themselves into it to bring it into themselves, to bring it into their cells. And so, like I was saying before, the mushroom or the fruit body is more like a flower than it is the actual mushroom itself. It's just what we see. And so because that's what we see, that's what we attribute as being the valuable thing. And in a materialistic world, we can't just assign value on what is immediately noticeable. And so the fruit body of fungi may have a typical or atypical mushroom structure depending on its reproduction. Like I was saying, they could exist as a single cell, or they can exist multicellularly. Some produce through sexual reproduction, and some don't have to have another mate with a different genetic variation to reproduce.
Wow, cool. So one of the things I'm thinking of, gosh, yeah, you are a wealth of information, James. This is amazing. I mean, we're only like a half hour in, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm pumped. I'm learning so much already. And so, okay, this makes me think about, yeah, because I've always just wondered, the whole thing, the cow pies and the psychedelic mushrooms like the cow poop. And so this is kind of helping me to understand why, basically. So why is it that is it because there's so much nutrients in the cow poop, because there's usually like a lot of grass and stuff in there? So it's like, if you can expand on that just a little bit, because it's something I've always just wondered about.
Yeah, so if, as any gardener knows, fresh manure is very high in nitrogen.
Mhm.
And these fungi, if you think of protein, if you think of nitrogen, think of protein. And if you think of protein, think of enzymes. Enzymes are functional proteins that we use, that all life uses to perform some function. Typically, they're very specific to the substrate, meaning if the enzyme is to break down sugar, it's only going to break down sugar. It's not going to break down fats or lipids, and it's not going to break down proteins. So or amino acids. It's only going to break down sugars. And so there are super complex enzymes like superoxide dismutase, SOD, which is very high in chaga, and it's a free radical scavenger and plays a lot of different functions in the body, but it is specific in the substrate that it's able to act on. And so same specificity with these mushrooms. It's one of the reasons why you're not going to find reishi growing in cow poop, is that they don't break that down. That's and psilocybe mushrooms are considered, I believe, tertiary decomposers. They're further down the line of decomposition, whereas reishi or Ganoderma are further up the chain of decomposition. They're primary decomposers. They are first in line. They want to get to fresh wood as soon as possible. First in line is first in time in commerce and also in nature. If a tree dies or is dying, it is resources to be recycled back into the environment. So nothing's lost, nothing's gained in this realm. But something has to be the recycler, or be Shiva, or be the destroyer. But the destroyer is also giving birth. Like Kali is taking life with one hand, giving birth in another.
Yeah, that's a great Great analogy there. Okay, that makes so
Yeah,
much sense.
I hope I was able to expand on that. I know I kind of went a few different places, but those mushrooms are there because they're supposed to be there.
Right.
That's really the most simple answer. But like we can go into the materialistic aspect of it, the pieces and parts, the structure, the function. But really, the most simple answer is that they're supposed to be there. God put them there. The Creator put the cow and the mushroom together.
Right, right. And I just think about, well, then when you say that, I think about just how sacred the cow is, especially in India, and then how sacred these mushrooms are and how much wisdom they hold and healing abilities. And then when I think about it too, even on a level of just like texture and type of mushroom, reishi compared to like a psychedelic mushroom that comes from a cow patty or cow pie or whatever you want to call it. Totally different texture. Reishi is very, reishi, it's like woody and it's tough. And the other types of mushrooms that would come from like a cow pie, they're softer, they're like squishier. So yeah, totally makes sense. Kind of like doctrine of signature kind of stuff there a little bit.
Yeah, and I really like psilocybe azarescens. You can find these in your region. They grow along the Olympic Peninsula and down into northern Oregon on the Pacific coast. But it's a mushroom that's captivated me. I even got a tattoo in my younger years of this mushroom, and it reminds me of domes. It makes sense to me that pretty much all psilocybe mushrooms kind of look like a Phrygian cap, and they look like domes, and they have all of these different symbols that could be attributed to them. And if you take psilocybe mushrooms to have a spiritual experience, it seems to be the veil breaker or the dome remover, but it's also the gatekeeper in the sense that it's going to give you what you can handle and no more. But a lot of people that have a quote unquote bad trip from them are typically not prepared to address the life that they've lived. Because one of the things that I've been speaking with people about on a more personal level is that we're already in the time of judgment. Like your judgment happens here. It's the judge mind. And anytime that we look upon the world and say, this should not be, you're being the judge of the creation. And God already made it be. So how it is how it is. And sometimes it's really, really tough for people to deal with, especially if there isn't a good way for them to integrate from that. Because I've had a lot of negative trips that were like getting raked over the coals. And I came out of it being able to integrate it and have a greater understanding and not just go into a puddle of myself basically and become useless. And instead integrate it and start to work on those aspects of myself. And it takes a great deal of responsibility. So I spoke about eating mushrooms. I was probably 15 the first time that I had tripped on mushrooms. And we got a big sack of wet mushrooms, and I ate them with Skittles because it was friggin' awful, and I was 15. I ate them with Skittles. We didn't have pizza. I would have ate them with pizza, maybe. Pizza's kind of heavy. So I ate a lot of mushrooms, and it felt like the back of my head kind of fell away. It felt like there was something kind of like plugged in like a chip, and it just fell away. And one of the things that happened during that trip was that it was impressed upon me that the foundation of each individual is personal responsibility. And since then, I've been trying to understand what that means. And because of that, I am now a homesteader. I produce a great deal, I would say approaching 15 to 20% of my calories I'm producing. I'm trying, that's hard. And I'm trying to get like, break the threshold of like 50%, but I don't know if that's going to happen with my particular diet that works best for fuel in this vessel. But yeah, it was impressed upon me that the foundation of each individual is personal responsibility. And so it's paramount that we go into these experiences. If you choose to go through this experience, then it's meant to be. But to take the responsibility to integrate it and to if you're given the notion from the mushrooms that you have to change specific aspects of your life, you have to, or you will suffer. That is what you're being presented. You will suffer your own ignorance, your own ignoring of what you were just given the tools to liberate yourself from.
Yes, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And I think the gift that the mushrooms give is the ability to start to be able to see some of this stuff. And it's the integration is when the trip actually, I feel like, really solidifies everything that it was bringing to you. It's like it's not even solidified until you integrate it. And so if you're just tripping and never integrating, man, you're setting, yeah, like you said, you're kind of setting yourself up for a big time fall and mush mind. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you know?
Because I've seen some folks that their life has revolved around festivals and tripping and just chasing a profound state, but they don't even integrate all of the lessons that they've learned, and and come to believe, maybe, I don't want to speak on these individuals' intentions or beliefs, but it seems that they come to believe that is, they start to see it as the guru, as the doorway to that profundity, but it isn't. It's just revealing. That's it. It's just taking, like I said, it's taking the dome off. We put ourselves we place limitations on ourselves so that we can grow into them and get greater understandings. So it's a boundary condition that we conceptually place on ourselves until we're mature enough, until we're ready to grow above the soil. And then again, place another boundary condition for yourself to grow into so that you can explore yourself. That's know thyself. It's here. It's always going to be here. Any place that you could ever know anything is here. There's no Mars. There's no off planet. We're not. Who's the world in debt to? It's all here. Dude. Any person that ever had a profound realization had it right here.
Right on. Yes, that is so true. And I just think that mushrooms are a gateway to finding out these things. So what an awesome gift you were given at 15 to get that message.
You know? Yeah, it was unsettling because it started to show me the truth in relationships with my family, in relationships with my relationship with society, and it felt lonely. Like whenever we first were talking before we came on, I was talking about how, especially the past couple of years, a lot of people in this community have been able to find one another and not feel so alone. Mm. But 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. A lot of people were running and gunning, and they felt alone. And I'm just very grateful for this time of revelation that we're living in, because it all happens in the mind. I don't really think that I don't think that the Creator is going to burn this place. I think that all of our false notions and attributes are going to have to be revealed for what they are, which is that they are false, and that only the truth will remain. Again, the alchemical process is going to take its place. And it's more fun to be willing and to have your hands up on the ride and just go whee, because it's going. As sure as the sun rose today, it will rise again.
That is right, man, and it's not going to stop. And that's one of the biggest lessons, greatest lessons that I've, really just always try and remind myself of. Always, and you always have to keep going. It's like there can be things that happen to you that stop you in your tracks. You should always, think about these things, consider them, integrate them. But the one rule now that I have is just don't stop. I have to be reminded of it sometimes. Our insecurities come in and you need help. You need to ask a partner, a trusted friend, what's going on. But at the end of the day, the answer nowadays is always just keep going no matter what. Because that is what is going on here. That is the realm we live in. I mean, really, for sure.
And so mushrooms are a great source of minerals. I put good, but they're a fantastic source of minerals, vitamins, provitamins, and prohormones. ergosterol is in the tissue of mushrooms. If you expose mushrooms to sunlight or to UV light, then it undergoes a change from ergosterol to ergocalciferol, which is vitamin D2. So we can use mushrooms in winter to supplement ourselves with some vitamin D. But I will caution you that if you're going to harvest mushrooms and then dry them in the sun, only allow them to dry in the sun or to be exposed to sunlight for 20 minutes to a half hour max. You can dehydrate them in sunlight, but don't start consuming them as a prime source of nutrition, like for calories or to fill your belly, because they can they can synthesize a lot of vitamin D2, and you can give yourself too much vitamin D2. And so just a caution on that. But they're a great source of these minerals like copper, calcium, iron, zinc, magnesium. Those are the ones that I just wanted to touch on. But there's a lot more like selenium, and it varies based on species. It's not like every mushroom is going to be different based on the environment, based on the substrate that it's eating. And they're a good source of B vitamins. So people that are vegan know that they can get some B vitamins through yeasts or through also mushrooms, but primarily like nutritional yeast is a big thing for folks that are choosing to be vegan. I don't think that that's a very good choice. I think that that nature already made your best B vitamin source animal protein. And also, mushrooms are a great source of medicinal compounds, polysaccharides like beta glucans. These are functional polysaccharides that are found in all mushrooms. They're a prebiotic fiber, so they can help to feed the bacteria that can use it. I'm not going to say good or bad. I'm just going to say that they can feed the bacteria that can use it. And they can also have anti-inflammatory effects. It's really great for soothing gut issues. I have people that ask me what to do for Crohn's disease, inflammatory bowel disease, you name it, SIBO, this and that. And I'm like, eat mushrooms and cut out a lot of your carbohydrates. Try that for a month and just eat mushrooms a couple times a week or in a meal once a day. And as I mentioned earlier, microbially derived enzymes is a really important aspect for mushrooms because they break down so many different substrates. Like I said, they break down rocks. Like you try eating a rock, come on. They break down carbohydrates that we can't, like lignin and cellulose. It's why whenever you eat corn, it's coming out in your poop. Like our bodies don't produce the enzymes to break down the cell wall of the kernels of corn or the cell wall of this is just a corn tangent, but corn used to mean grain, and so it's any grain we can't digest the hull of, and so it's insoluble fiber. But really, I would say try to keep that to a minimum in your diet as well, because some insoluble fibers can be mineral binding and inflammatory. So some other important medicinal compounds are triterpenes and terpenoid compounds and sterols and acids. And these are things that, and I put some notes on polysaccharides in these so that people know that you can make a tea and get some polysaccharides and some triterpenes, but you're going to be leaving a lot of things in the mushroom matter if you're not extracting it with a solvent that is able to get that out of the mushroom matter. So it has to be like a non-polar solvent like ethanol or CO2. There's supercritical CO2 extraction, which I didn't put in my slides just because it's a whole complex thing that isn't really accessible for people at home. But these medicinal compounds are going to be the targets that we're extracting if we're making tinctures or if we're making tea. So I kind of lost my train of thought. So you can go on to the next slide.
Okay,
If you, unless you have, unless
yeah,
you have
I've
some
got a
questions.
question. Okay, so one thing about now this is just something I've heard, and I don't know because I wouldn't even know how to confirm it, but I've heard a handful of like herbalists that I've followed over the years talk about the importance of if you're buying like mushroom powder, that to see that the company has like pre-steamed it, then dried it, and then ground it up. I've been wanting to ask you this question. Is that necessary? Is that something that somebody should look for, or does it not matter?
It definitely does matter.
Okay.
It's not necessarily that it's steamed, but that's a more efficient way to uh, put heat to heat treat the mushrooms.
Okay.
We dehydrate our mushrooms, but I always tell we put it on our packaging that people need to do not consume raw, because a dehydrated mushroom is not cooked; it is still raw. But a lot of the compounds that were inaccessible are going to be accessible at the temperatures that we're dehydrating, which is 160 degrees Fahrenheit for about 24 hours or longer, depending on what we're drying and if it's still got moisture content that I'm trying to get out of it. But for the most part, people have an idea that you can eat raw mushrooms because they tolerate it well enough, but there is chitin in the cellular structure of mushrooms. That is the same polysaccharide that makes up the structure of crustaceans and shellfish. And so some people that have an inability to digest those things would almost definitely have an intolerance to consuming raw or undercooked mushrooms. So even at the farmers market, I tell people to cook their fresh mushrooms a minimum 3 to 5 minutes at a medium-high heat to saute them, and this breaks down a lot of the complex polysaccharides to make them more digestible. Typically, you're not going to have like an anaphylactic reaction. What you're going to have is it is more of like an upset stomach. You might get gassy, and you may have bowel distension. So you just get like a tight gut, and it feels really bad. But it is important that you cook your mushrooms. This is one of the big differences between mushrooms and herbs, is that you want to extract your mushrooms with heat. And whenever we get to the extraction portion, I'll go into that a little bit more. But it's actually really important for being able to access some of these medicinal compounds, especially in mushrooms like chaga.
Okay, right on. And I had a feeling that that was a crucial part to getting powdered mushrooms, but I wanted to ask you because I have you here and I know that you would know. So, all right, thank you for that. Reishi, yay! This is one of my all-time favorites, and this is one of the
So
mushrooms,
amazing.
yeah, that I'm quite familiar with too. So I was really stoked to see that you have a slide on it.
Yeah. So the top picture and the middle picture are reishi that I grew this year, and this is from a culture that a friend gave me. He took a picture of it and he was like, "Hey, what is this? Can you use this?" And I was like, "Yes, put it in a Tupperware dish and put it in your fridge, and I'll get it from you as soon as possible." And this particular one is most likely Ganoderma sessile, but I have not gone through the process of like trying to genetically code it to confirm. Reishi is an overarching name for the species of Ganoderma that that occur in the temperate ranges. The specifically Ganoderma lucidum is what most people refer to reishi as, but there has been some clarification in taxonomy that there's like Ganoderma organiscs, which is where you are, and those things are gigantic. There's Ganoderma applanatum, which is also called artist conch, and they're both in the Ganoderma species, and they have a lot of similar compounds like ganoderic acid, and and they have a lot of the same makeup, the chemical makeup, but there are there are specific differences in their ability to grow on different substrates. For all intents and purposes, I'm going to be sticking to more of the lucidum side of things than the artist conch. So, but they are all typically saprophytes preferring hardwood. So a saprophyte is a mushroom that likes to break down wood. That's really all that is, just a fancy term. And I also put some of the doctrine of signatures on here because I actually didn't know the term doctrine of signatures, but I just knew like, oh, something that looks like something in your body. Like I thought of it just as correspondence from a hermetic principle. I didn't know that there was a term for it until like 8 months ago. And I was like, whoa, mind blowing. Okay, cool. Because I'm nerdy and I like linguistics. But I would see things in the environment and then intuit what they were good for. And so some of the signatures for reishi is that it mimics the kidney and adrenals and also the lungs. So I put pneumocardiovascular system, so that's your lungs and your heart. And then also the lymphatic system. It's very reminiscent of the of lymph nodes, and especially if you're seeing it grow out of the soil. So the top photo represents the best way that I could describe it growing out of the soil, which is that it makes a long stem that we typically refer to as an antler. And then whenever it reaches enough oxygen, then it will fan out and make that beautiful conch shape. And so there really isn't a big difference between the antler form of reishi and the conch form, except that the antler was formed under high CO2 conditions and the conch form was under high oxygen conditions. And so some of the interesting properties are that it's an antihistamine, an anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant. It helps to improve your lymphatic drainage, and it's an anxiolytic, which we'll see this with a couple of the other ones as well. And so an anxiolytic is something that eliminates anxiety. So lysis is to break, and anxio, you can see that is the prefix for anxiety. And so this is one of the most well-studied medicinal mushrooms aside from turkey tail, and it has been shown to put tumors into regression and also to have a host-mediated response. I didn't put that on this one because I didn't want the slide to get too busy, but I put it in with the turkey tail, I believe. But a host-mediated response is that when it's interacting with your body, and your body's like, oh, I needed some of this. Oh, it's allowing me to unfold my genetic story to start making the replacement cells that are non-cancerous, and also the cells that are going to help to remove the cancerous tissue. Because really, cancer is self not recognizing self. And so that's just the simplest way, is like, hey, that's not me, attack it. It's like a cancer really is an autoimmune disorder. So, and that's how I understand it to be. But reishi is one of the most fascinating mushrooms. I had a grow room full of this, and I just would go stand in there and drink coffee with them and just be like, whoa, guys.
Dude, beautiful. Yeah, I feel the same way about reishi. And I remember the first time that we went out and found them. Oh my God. I felt that way. Like I was like, I felt like I was walking up on like this freaking royal being, really, because it's just like so captivating. And like as you said, the reishi out here on the West Coast, they are huge and they're like puffy. They almost look like clouds, sort of. Super cool and captivating. And I always look at, I mean, all mushrooms, but the reishi in particular, I have this like sense that it's just really great for helping to restore our DNA and protect our DNA. Do you have any thoughts on that, or knowledge about reishi or any mushrooms being, assisting in that?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was leading with the term host-mediated response. So
Okay.
it's interacting with your body at a genetic level, and to say exactly what it is doing is still up for scientific exploration, because you can't really see molecules interacting. You can't see DNA unfolding. You can only go, okay, I poked, and now this is it poking me back. That's it. You can just do stimulus response, but you're not able to see the exact mechanism of action of it. And so it's still being studied for all of those folks that are like really nerdy about the details. I get it. I am too. But at the same time, we have to leave that bit of mystery in there, because these beings are intelligent, and their intelligence is in their form as much when they're alive and living as whenever they're dried out and made into medicinal compounds. It didn't go anywhere. There's no loss of that intelligence. It's just transferred form.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, that makes sense. This is great. Lovely. Shall we move on to the next?
Let's do it.
All right. Oh, chaga. Yay.
Chaga. I knew that you were going to be excited because you are the lady of the birch.
Yes, thank you. I am. I know. And I love birch. And yes, I love chaga too. And chaga is delicious. It's one of my favorite go-tos for a tea, Oh, I love it. You can make chaga chai. You can do all sorts of things with chaga, but
so good.
Oh, it's so good. Oh my goodness. Anyway, and for anyone who doesn't want to drink coffee and they're trying to get off, chaga is a great substitute for coffee.
Yeah. It has those earthy notes that can be the draw for using coffee or even tobacco. I'm very much a person that is attracted to earthy, grounding, different medicinal substances, whatever it may be. Like I don't smoke tobacco, but I will roll a spliff with some cannabis and thoroughly enjoy it.
Nice.
And rooibos tea as well has that same sort of aromatic, earthy presence that tobacco has, and that's a really fantastic one as well. And it's non-caffeinated, so you can put that into the fold of different medicinal concoctions, whether it's teas or extractions to make into gummies, whatever you're doing. And so chaga is a parasitic saprophyte. So it is specifically a saprophyte or a parasite of birch and some related species. It seems that I started on a thought and then didn't finish it right there. But it can also be found to grow on elms, I believe, and on chestnuts. And it's been found that trees infected with chestnut blight or are being infected purposely for study are able to ward off the chestnut blight infection because of the chaga. And the chaga actually kind of becomes more of a symbiont than a parasite. And that's super interesting. And it really only forms this particular conch shape on birch trees, but it tends to form a canker on other trees that it infects. So even if you're in a forest with birch or without birch, and you're finding or with birch and you're finding chaga, but you're finding a tree that's got lumps all over it, that could be it being infected with this particular fungus. One thing that I do have to caution people on is ethical harvesting of this mushroom, because it does take a very long time to grow. Another fungus that I didn't put in here that I kind of regret is usnea. And usnea is another one of those slow growing fungi that you really have to respect it and don't go try to harvest it. We just had a bunch of storms come through here through the month of January. And so through this month, we've had a lot get blown down from the tops of oak trees. And I'm just going hog wild getting it. Let me see. I have a tincture here, and I kind of want to see. No, that's crappy quality. Anyways, it looks like a galaxy inside of that, because I'm not very familiar with usnea to know what kind of compounds are crystallizing in there, but there are these cool little, almost like selenite crystals, like throughout the tincture, like stratified and just kind of like floating around. Looks like a little galaxy. It's really cool.
That's awesome. And I'll encourage people to go to Family Fungi on Instagram too, because when you posted, it was a couple months ago when you made a Usnea extraction and it was super golden and just beautiful.
So
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's super cool. I know. And I've always heard too that a Usnea tincture that has that golden orangey color, that is what you want. And like if you're buying Usnea tincture or whatever, and you want a high quality one, make sure that it has that golden color. Yeah, herbalist Susan Weed always talks about that it should look like that. And yours looks like that and it's gorgeous. So
And so chaga has been traditionally used for stomach ailments, colds, flus, and it's been a big component in so many different sorts of health tonics, topically applied as a poultice. And circle back to the ethical harvesting. If you are going to harvest it, you can actually help the mushroom out by taking that brown portion, which is the active mycelial layer of this, and you can chop some of that up into a poultice and wound a couple of birch trees and put the poultice into the wound of those birch trees and successfully propagate the chaga. Birch trees in a lot of places are considered a weedy tree species, so you're not really going to be hurting the forest by doing that. Traditionally, what happens is a storm wounds a tree by knocking a dying tree infected with this fungus. It wounds a tree, and the tree that wounded it from being blown over spreads the mycelium. That would be like the natural way that it's going, as well as it does produce a fruit body. This is not the fruit body. This is called a sclerotium. A sclerotium is a mycelial mass that's more like a time capsule. And so it's waiting for the proper conditions. It's taking in the nutrition from the environment. And then whenever the conditions are right, it can form, or it can inform the right space of the fungus body, of the mycelial body, to produce the fruit body. But typically, this is what is used for that is used medicinally. And chaga is one of the more important ones to be using these days, I believe, because of it being one of the most potent antioxidants, and it's a potent anti-inflammatory. It's one of those things that you drink tea from it and you start to feel better within a short time, like 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, 5 minutes. I start drinking it, and the anxiolytic or anxiety relieving effects of it are extremely noticeable. It's kind of like what I was saying at the beginning of this, drinking cordyceps tea, is that it really helps with balancing your endocrine system, with your with getting your cortisol in line, and kind of allowing your body to calm down and be prepared for what you're experiencing. And so it's also high in melanin, and melanin is whenever we intake it, helps us to produce melatonin, and melatonin is our signaling hormone that allows us to know that it's dark, that it's time to go into our phase of rest for the day. Elise actually shared with me a podcast of a guy supplementing with like super high doses of melatonin, and it was really interesting because I started doing that as well, just to experiment with myself, and I've been having some really clear dreams, but also it helps with this lighting. Like, I'm under 6500K lights a lot because I'm either working in my fruiting room, which has to be very, very bright to stimulate the mushrooms to grow. They're photosensitive, so they use light as a trigger for growth. And so I'll be in there at night, and supplementing with melatonin or having a cup of chaga tea, it really does help me to prepare for that restful phase and to start getting into closing accounts, like closing all the doors and putting everyone to rest for the evening. And so the signature that I mentioned is that it's vascular appearing, and so you can see in that more brownish yellow orange section, it looks like vessels. It looks like it's going to penetrate into and then allow for that clearing, for that draining. It's one of my favorite mushrooms, and it's one of the and it's a big reason why I put the caveat of harvesting it ethically, because I want to see it here, and I want people to be able to use it for medicine. Um, and another thing that I'll kind of put a pin in before moving on is to get people out of this mindset that you're so sick. Like, there are things that we do need to help ourselves with, but it seems that the supplementation of so many different things has like taken people's it's the continuation of the victim mindset and germ theory that you're sick and that you need to take something. I mean, you have the allies in your environment. You don't necessarily need to get something from thousands of miles away, but you also may. It depends, and that's where you have to use your intuition. But also, I want to help inspire people to stop viewing themselves as being so damn sick. Stop going to the jungle to go do ayahuasca. Eat some mushrooms. Grow some mushrooms. Be nice to yourself. Do lymphatic self-massage. Like, if you've got some stuck fluid in there, you've got some water that needs to be restructured, move it around, man. Like, this is, it's just, because I do supplement, but not every day. And I try to do it as intuitively as possible. That way, I'm not going, oh my gosh, I'm in need. I have to do this. Because then you're putting yourself in the same boat that has put, like, that has landed people into becoming dependents of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes, I'm so glad you went there because I feel exactly the same way. And I haven't always felt that way. I haven't always had as much faith in my own body, faith in the universe, faith in the fact that, hey, maybe I'm not feeling as well as I would. What's going on? And I'm with you too of this going elsewhere to get all these healings when we have an abundance of all the things around us are what we need in order to do that. And it is all within. And I have to just bring this up too, because over the last couple of days, I wasn't feeling my best. I could tell that I was detoxing. I felt it come on. I was working out, and it was like 3 days ago after my workout. And, we all have a smell, right? But when your smell is off, there's a detox that might be coming. So it was almost like I knew it was coming. And so I took the proper precautions, beforehand. I then didn't have as, a rough detox, but it still happened. I still had the things. I had a little bit of a stuffy nose. I had a little bit of a sore throat, whatever. But what I noticed about this time, what I did totally differently was I rephrased all the language that I used around not feeling well. So instead of saying I'm fighting something off, I kept reminding myself to say, I'm working with something right now. I'm working with this, whatever it is, whatever this detox is, I'm working with it instead of it looking like, or even saying like, I'm under the weather. I didn't even want to say that because I'm just like, but I'm not, I'm still here. I'm still myself. I'm still in my body. It's just that I know that my body is trying to work this out. And I will tell you, man, it was one of the most easeful, easeful little head colds, whatever you want to call it, detox thing that I've gone through. And I haven't been sick in a really long time. I haven't actually felt that way. And I even tried to tell myself that I wasn't sick. It was just that I'm just going through this. And gosh, it made such a big difference. And I think that if more people thought that way, and if we were taught that from a young age and kind of had more of the mentality of what you're saying, of not feeling like I'm in need of this, because I've also changed my supplementation regimen to more of an intuitive thing of realizing like, hey, okay, I might need some sulfur. I might need some MSM.
Yes,
I'm going to do that now. And then you can tell when you have enough. You can feel it. If you're tuning in and you're listening to yourself, you can really feel it. And I'm totally with you. So I'm glad you went there.
Yeah, just a real quick. Most of the time that we're going through something like that, all we really need is proper hydration with good quality water and minerals.
Yep.
Minerals is the name of the game. Like you do need calories to perform certain things energetically, but it's all about the minerals. I really don't subscribe to breatharianism because I'm like, you were made with a mouth and a beehole. It's supposed to be the way that it is. But it's about proper nutrition and connecting with your environment. If you're growing your own food, peeing in your garden, you're informing the soil to inform yourself, because we are always in formation. We are not a static being. We are constantly reforming ourselves into a new body. We're never who we were yesterday. And it's only our thinking that can become static and rigid. And even that is just something that we're perpetuating. Like you said, you just change the thinking about it. I'm allowing something to pass through. I'm just a vessel for it. As far as I know, that's it. That's about all I got. If I try to pin it down to anything else, then I become a victim. And that's not what's going on. I'm allowed to be here. It's a gift to be here. And whenever you change from I have to I get to, I'm allowed, then wow, you're back in your birthright and your inheritance from the Creator.
Yes, indeed. Oh, this is beautiful. Yeah, because the whole like, oh, I have to get this done or I need to. I like to try and think of it or change it is to like, I want to, and we don't always want to do the things that we have to do, but it's just these little changes that you can make over time. And you have to train yourself. It's not like you're just going to be able to instantly change all these languages and whatever. And you have to learn a lot of lessons and go through things and do all this stuff to actually get to a lot of these kinds of conclusions when we start to realize, how much our minds and our mindset really set us up for brilliance or failure, and it is the real deal. And illness, oh my God, we could do a whole other episode just on germ theory, terrain theory, G&M, how it all blends, what is going on. Yeah, and there'll be more to come on that. But now let's continue with these shroomies here. Turkey tail.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Turkey tail is probably the most accessible mushroom on this list. Reishi is pretty accessible for most people as well, but turkey tail can grow into some sub-arid climates, so into almost deserty kind of drier conditions. They might only come out during the winter or whatever time period provides the most precipitation. But they are a powerhouse of different medicinal compounds, most well known for PSK, polysaccharide K. Johns Hopkins has been using a synthetic PSK, a synthetic polysaccharide K called Crestin is the name of the drug. But again, turning to nature first to try to synthesize and make something that is patentable, and instead of just going and saying, hey, you just need to drink this tea, you need to stop doing the things that are making you ill first off, and then here's some things that you can do to support your body in healing, because our bodies are intelligent. We need to stop with the thinking that perpetuates the mindset that we're broken, because we're not. We were made perfect, and the idea that we're not is one of the most undermining things for our people to be having to go through at this time. PSK and turkey tail are potent tumor suppressors. Turkey tail itself is anti-cancer, meaning that it provides an environment for your body to stop looking at itself as not self. And it's an antioxidant, so it's going to scavenge things that we're just making as a byproduct of our natural metabolism. And some people have a better ability to detoxify oxidants in our body, like free radical oxygen. Typically, the people that can't do so are sedentary. So you don't have to use these things. They're great as allies, but really, it's already in your body. Just don't put the things inside of yourself that are going to make you sick. And it's also, this is one of the big reasons why Johns Hopkins started to use it, is that it's a chemo and radio protective. And so it's used as an adjuvant or PSK is used as an adjuvant in some cancer therapies. And in the East, it's been outright used as a treatment for cancer. Again, with chaga and with turkey tail, going back to the Soviet bloc, that's all people really had access to was the land. They had to go out because you couldn't collectivize fungi. So like it's the people's medicine. You couldn't collectivize herbs. It's the people's medicine. It's already here. Man has no domain over that. Like we get to have a idea that we do, but nature is not amenable to our fancies. And so I started speaking about host-mediated response earlier, and it's just signaling to your body the proper way to start gene expression for recognizing tumorigenic or cancerous tissues, but then also to provide an environment that isn't going to promote that, and that is going to be that holistic self-to-self, like, I don't know if you've ever been tripping and just kind of had to like, oh, whoa, those are my hands, or okay, I'm here. Like, this is the body that I'm in. I felt like I was the whole room, and I am. But I had to. This is my locus of that origination.
Totally. And
so,
what a beautiful experience that is. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. And so it can help to induce apoptosis, which is triggered cell death. So your body has to get rid of the things that have done its time. It's done its time. It's learned its lesson. It's provided its role, and now it's time to go. But some things kind of hang around, like the Catholic Church or something. And so this can inhibit the proliferation of certain cancers as well. And again, it's just this, to me, turkey tail is the people's medicine, is the thing that people need to get into their medicine cabinets. And again, it's most important that we just stop putting the things in our bodies that, because we're making war on ourselves. We see the war out in the world, and we don't realize that it started here first. Because you wouldn't want to go kill your brothers and sisters in another realm, in another part of this realm, unless you were so insecure in yourself that it was me or you. That's heavy. But so some of the signatures of this mushroom is that it's branching and concentric. So you can see that they're kind of coming off of a central place, and then they have these concentric bands. And so it's pretty reminiscent of the layering that happens in tissues. And so this can help you think of like your epidermis sheds itself. And so this is also like your epidermis isn't just the outside, isn't just this. You actually have epidermal tissue throughout your GI tract, throughout the surface of a lot of your tissues. You have epidermal tissue. And so this helps with getting those back in balance. And so I think it's my thought, and I'll try to stand on it as much as I can, but it's my thought that this thing is helping to rebalance charge. And so this is a mushroom that is so widely found for a reason, and I think that it's because it's something that helps to balance the charge of our cells, of our body. And it has a kidney or lung shape, and so it is reminiscent of the ability to cleanse and the ability to take in anew.
Wow, this is awesome. And you know, one of the things I'm looking at the photo and how you're talking about the balance, and then the way that it grows, and how you talked about where it comes from like a central point, and then there's like one next to one another. I see divine balance in that, just looking at it. So you bringing that up kind of triggered me to think about this. And just for people who might not be familiar too, you know, there's a false turkey tail as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
and they're If you misidentify and make tea with false turkey tail, it's not going to harm you, but it's not going to give you the compound. It's not going to give you PSK. It's not going to give you some of the things that you'd be looking for. But as far as I've looked into, it really isn't very well studied either. Since it wasn't the target of some of these studies, and because doing studies is extensive, time consuming, and financially consuming, and you know, certain and financially interested for some parties,
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I found had a lot of scientific articles or any sort of literature to say that it's medicinal. But again, mushrooms have beta glucans, so you're going to be getting these anti-inflammatory polysaccharides from that just as much as you would with like oyster mushrooms. Like, people don't really think of oyster mushrooms as a medicinal mushroom. Excuse me, but oyster mushrooms were what the science went to find statins. So oyster mushrooms are the natural source of lovastatin, and now I think most lovastatin or most statins are produced. They're either synthetic or they're produced through red yeast rice. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but that's a common source of statins. And statins are marketed as cholesterol lowering, but whenever you're getting something that's a whole source like this, it's more cholesterol balancing. It's but if you're getting like a prescription statin, if you take those, it can lower your cholesterol, and that can be a really bad thing because cholesterol is the backbone of hormones, and hormones mediate your mood. They furnish your mood. They furnish your attitudes. They your reward systems. So like the cholesterol is a very important thing, and that I feel the war on eggs and cholesterol from the 50s onward was to make people weak and to make people incapable of. I think it was part of the process of infantilizing people to keep them regressed because it's a molecule of growth and of change. And cholesterol is in in most higher organisms.
Yeah, totally. And those statins, however you want to say it, it's like, oh my God. I mean, they're horrible and you become so dependent on them. And these people that are on them, you're on for life, dude. I mean, and that's the thing too. And this whole fear on this fear porn on fats and cholesterol that has been driven into everybody. Salt is another one. Obviously you don't want to be eating just like mounds of salt, but we need salt. I mean, that is a basic like nutrient that we all need in order for our bodies to like function. And so anyway, we have it's also backwards. But yeah, the statin drugs are something else. And I was so sad when my brother, who I love him so dearly, but he's just one of those people where he's not really willing to like exercise or, take care of himself or whatever. He's younger than I am. So he's 36, I think, 37 maybe. And he just went on like water pills or whatever they call them. He's like, it's just a water pill. I'm like, no, that is not what you want to be doing. Like, he's like, well, I have high blood pressure, so that's what the doctor said. I was like, dude, bro, it's all about just like reevaluating your lifestyle. You don't need to take these pills in order to do it. Now at 37, there's possibility you're gonna be on this for the rest of your life, and it's gonna do irreversible damage. So it's sad, but there's only so much you can do because like we said earlier, it all comes back to self. So as much as you tell people these things and show it to them and share it, it's up to the person really. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Personal responsibility.
indeed.
Oh yeah, I was like, wait, I know I did pictures. Yeah, they're on a separate slide.
Okay.
So lion's mane is kind of becoming one of the more champion medicinal mushrooms because it is studied for its nerve growth stimulant factors, which can help to repair neurons and regrow and rebuild myelin. Lion's mane is all of these mushrooms that I'm speaking about are all saprophytes. They all break down typically hardwoods. Turkey tail is one of the ones that can break down hardwood, softwood, and some conifers. And so conifers produce resins that are mostly antimicrobial and antifungal. But turkey tail comes into there and is like, nah, I can hang out here. This is a good condo. So they have strong antimicrobial properties, and they're opportunistically pathogen, especially against opportunistically pathogenic fungi like Candida. So Candida have a natural role, but they are out of balance. We are out of balance. So like we have our remedy tincture, and I put on our website a blog. It's called Remedy Rebalance from Within, and it's really, if you want to go nerd out more about these mushrooms that I'm talking about, all of these are included in our tincture, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about it, because I was drawn to using these as medicine myself first, and I was like, holy moly, this is like unsung heroes of the natural world. And so the arenacenes are compounds in lion's mane that stimulate the neuronal regrowth and rebuilding of myelin. There are also hericenones, and so I'm kind of getting a brain fart, but one of them is higher in mycelium and the other is higher in the fruit body. And this is where I came to the realization, and went back and read a lot of these studies, is that a lot of mushrooms are studied for their mycelium, and a lot of mushrooms are studied for their fruit body. But if you just go and read a study and you're like, lion's mane is good for this, it's not telling you in the title of the study. You have to actually go in there, get in the details, get in the weeds, and read it. What are they talking about? Are they talking about mycelium that was grown in liquid culture, which is just basically like nutrified sugar water, or are they talking about the fruit body? Are they talking about mycelium grown on grain over here? What's the substrate? What's the true compounds? And so it really depends on the target compound that you're trying to get the benefit from. But if you're looking at it pieces and parts like that, it really starts to take away from the spirit of using these for medicine. And so using both the mycelium and the fruit body is in my opinion better to have a combination of both. And our tinctures, though, I only use fruit body. In our powders, I will have an equal ratio, 1-to-1, of fruit body and mycelium, except with certain things like turkey tail, because you can't really turkey tail and reishi, you can't really get those into a good powder. They're very fibrous, so I typically have those either. I'll either have reishi available fruit bodies that you can make your own extracts with, or I will have turkey tail fruit bodies available that you can do your own medicinal extracts with. But the powders that we use will do the myceliated grains, because it's almost impossible to grind all of the stuff up unless you're like a pharmaceutical lab, and like they have freeze dryers and these huge grinders, and then again the quality of the stuff that they're producing is almost garbage, because a lot of these things have been found to have heavy metal contamination. And so it's really important to be aware of your source with these as well. And so always organic or ethically grown. Like some people can't say organic because in their state they may get fined or threatened with fines or imprisonment. So just do your research and definitely look for U.S. cultivated, because these are tending to have lower levels of contamination than products that are from Asia. But call them. If you're getting a supplement from a company, call them and check them on it. I did this to a couple companies like 6 years ago. I was like, so where exactly are you growing these? And they're like, oh, we don't grow them. I'm like, okay, well, where are you sourcing them? And a lot of them are getting them from China, or China's the bad guy. Getting them from Asia. China's just a huge exporter. Even if it's not grown in China, it may be grown in Thailand or in another Asian country, and then just exported through China. If it has an Asian origin, it has a high probability of having that heavy metal contamination, which mushrooms are great for remediating the environment, but if they've been remediating a toxic environment, you don't want to ingest those mushrooms. So circling back to lion's mane, its signatures is that it looks like the nervous system. It looks like a fuzzy little brain with branching nerves, and it's something that I've found from speaking with people that it really does help them with peripheral neuropathy and pain and numbness and tingling in their extremities. Oh. You want to hug? You want to say hey?
Hey there.
So this is Joffrey.
Hey, Joffrey.
He's been slapping on the door for a couple minutes now, but he just wanted a hug and a kiss.
Aww.
And he wanted to say hey.
Well, that's nice. Hugs and kisses are good.
Yeah. I love you, buddy. He can't hear you, but you want to say hey?
Hi, Joffrey.
Say hey to all the people.
Hey.
Hi there. Nice to meet you.
It's Miss Michelle.
Hey.
Yeah. That's right. I love you. You going to go sleep? Yeah. I'm going to come cuddle with you whenever I'm done.
Papa's almost done. I'm going to release him soon.
I'm almost done. Okay. I love you.
Aw, nice.
Go they down there? I love you, buddy. Okay. Heyo. I'll have a mono for a second.
Nice.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Elise.
Michelle said hey.
I know she's near.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks everyone for being patient. I love my little buddies.
People love it. They're loving it. Yes.
It's family fungi. Family first, fungi second.
Exactly.
So these are both lion's mane that I grew. The first image, or the top image, is one of the first ones that I ever grew, and it came out as a heart. It was really cool. But you can see like the tendril aspect of them, and also there are some other related mushrooms in the Hericium family that also have these nerve growth stimulating factors. An interesting one is bear's head tooth, and you can find those pretty readily in your region, Michelle, and also through the Appalachian range. I included that second picture because I broke a mushroom apart to weigh it out at the farmer's market, and it looked exactly like a brain and a brainstem. And I was just struck at the doctrine of signatures. Like I said, I didn't even know the term. I was like, hey, I see patterns. I'm a pattern guy. And so it was really interesting to work with these mushrooms. This was the first successful culinary mushroom that I was able to grow at scale. I was having trouble with a lot of different things whenever you start a business, but you start trying to scale up, you end up with these different factors that you have to start accounting for, and you kind of have to check your process along the way to see, like, where did I mess up? Because like this is my lab that I'm in right now, and we actually sleep in the main part in the next room. I'm actually about to build a loft, so I know that Elise would want me to segue a little bit with this. If you support us, it would be greatly appreciated because it goes towards building our home. So Thank you very much. That's my plug. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I know that it all comes in the time that we need it. But this mushroom taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to deal with successes and deal with failures. And it's funny, after having such great success growing it, for several months I wasn't able to grow it, and it was one of those things that I would have it at market, and people would be like, "What is that? Is that a sponge? You got cauliflower? You're just a cauliflower farmer?" Because it's just a whole table of white, and they're just like seeing it from afar and then walking up, and no one was interested. So I had to like do lion's mane pulled pork sandwiches where I like made a homemade barbecue sauce and sauteed some onions and peppers and just tossed everything together with some sauteed lion's mane and then put it on a sourdough ciabatta bun.
Sounds awesome. Oh my God.
It was really good. It was really good. But it helps people. It helps people see that this is a delicious edible mushroom. It's a neutral flavored mushroom, so whatever you season it as, it's going to taste like it. Do you want to come sit with me? You can come sit with me. Come here. Now you can hear what's going on too.
Yeah.
All right.
Talking mushrooms over here, buddy.
What do you do? Oh, raise it up just a little bit. Hey.
Nice. Perfect.
Don't feel rushed. He'll hang out. He wants some Papa loving.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. I don't feel rushed. You either. Yeah, we're good. Cool. Totally good.
So this mushroom is one that you can find mostly in temperate zones, and it likes cold weather. So be on the lookout now. It's nicknamed monkey's head. So it typically, you can see it growing in the tops of hardwood trees, but it is going to be one of those specific for hardwoods. So if you're looking for foraging these, there are no poisonous lookalikes. So if you find something that looks like that, it's pretty much that or something related to it.
Nice. I am going to keep my eye open because I've always wanted to find lion's mane, and Mario and I, when we were making the graphics for our show together, I was like bringing up pictures of lion's mane and stuff, and I'm like, babe, can you just imagine walking up to this in the woods? And we were just both tripping out about how cool it would be to find one. So yeah, maybe.
I should have included this picture of one that someone came to the farmers market last year around this time. So I need to contact them, and they were like, "Do you want a lion's mane?" And I was like, "Are you trying to hustle me? Like, I'm selling mushrooms here, man." No, but they were like, "We've had this mushroom growing on a red oak tree, at the base of a red oak tree at the end of our driveway for several years now. And it's huge. If you want to come after the market, you can come by and get it." And I went and harvested it. It was 10 pounds. It was enormous. Yeah, it was bigger than like 3 basketballs. It was huge.
That's so cool. Oh,
I tried to grow it, but if you're like trying to clone a mushroom from the wild, there's varying degrees of successes with it. Some stuff works, some doesn't.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's so funny. It's so cool when you're out and doing farmers markets. And that's one of the things that I don't remember how many slides we have left, but yeah, that you guys are at farmers markets. You're very active in the community and stuff like that. It's super cool, but it's just so cool to see what comes to you when you're doing stuff like that, and how people will just walk up to you and be like, "Hey, I've got this on my property. Do you want to come have it? Or will you come harvest it? I'll bring it to you next week," or whatever. Yeah, it's just so fun. And that's one of the fun things about doing stuff like that.
And so shiitake is one of my personal favorites. I had to include it because without shiitake and reishi, I probably wouldn't have. I mean, and also cubensis, I probably would have passed it over. But I was looking for something, and I was looking for a way to remain healthy. And I joke with Elise. I said, inside of me is a old Japanese man. Like I resonate with Japanese culture so much, but I'm so disorganized, and they're like very, very organized and regimented and intentional. even though it can seem very left brain, it's also very intuitive whenever you kind of like get with their philosophy as well. But shiitake means the oak mushroom. They're typically found on oak trees. They're typically found on hardwood trees, um, and in our region in the south, we have a invasive species of tree called the it's called Chinese tallow. Tallow like fat,
Hmm.
and it has a seed that is used for fodder for animals in Asia, and has also been used for making candles and fuel oil for lighting for a very long time. But it is a very invasive species, and its foliage, whenever it drops its leaves, it actually can prevent other trees from growing. And so, whenever it starts to establish itself in an area, it starts to dominate, and it's a really cruddy tree in a forestry use. So for people that are like trying to like Louisiana is a big state for agroforestry. That's like one of the top things aside from the petrochemical industry here for bringing revenue into the state. And so this in 2014, a university in Florida was trying to figure out if there was an industrial use for this tree. And what they came up with is that it's a pretty decent tree to grow shiitakes on. And it doesn't have any sort of toxins or anything in the mushrooms because they like did everything methodically. We can't eat the nut of the tree, and the foliage is poisoning plants around it. So it's got to be poisonous, right? And it is. The sap of it, like if you were to peel the bark off of it, is highly astringent and can actually give you like a chemical burn on your skin. But whenever you grow the mushrooms, they're the master alchemists. They know how to take this and recycle it into something that is good for the environment, good for us, and can remediate something that may be seen as problematic and instead be seen as advantageous. So I didn't really know where to speak about the doctrine of signatures for this particular mushroom, but I can talk about some of the properties. It's a great detoxifying mushroom. It's been studied for targeting very hard to treat tumors and cancers, and uh, it has lintenin, which is a polysaccharide. So you just get it from the cell of the mushroom. The cell wall is made up of this, and it can help with this bacteria that has been associated with dental decay, and it helps to reduce it. There are actually mouthwashes in Asia that are marketed that have lintenin in them. Really interesting. Um, but one of my favorite mushrooms by far, and it's a well-known culinary mushroom, but it's a wonderful medicinal mushroom, and it's one of those things that it's super meaty. So whenever you're eating it, it fills you up. It makes you feel full of chi. It's one of those things that helps to put that life force back into you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And oh, I love shiitake in soups. It's like it's so good in a lot of things, but soups I find it to be just fabulous, really. Oh, and now your extraction section. Cool. I've been so
Yeah,
excited to hear you talk about this.
yeah. So as we were touching on earlier, extraction with mushrooms is really important because they do need some type of heat treatment. The heat treatment is going to break down chitin and open up the cells for whatever solvent, whether that is ethanol, so that's alcohol, or whether that's water. But whatever you're using, the solvent, whatever desired compounds you're trying to get out of it, it's limited by the solvent that you're using. But you do want to use heat to break the cell wall. A secondary thing that you can do is ultrasonication. So you can use, they have like the dental cleaning devices. They're ultrasonic cleaners, and then they also have ultrasonic wands. And I have a accompanying slide for this just to show people what that is. And the the ultrasonication uses very fast vibration to cause cavitation. So cavitation is like this molecular explosion. It has so much force that it just blows apart the cells from the inside. It's really intriguing because this is a great pre-treatment step for any extraction, but it's also a really good extraction as a standalone, especially for any sort of herb or anything that is heat sensitive. Using ultrasonication to break open the cell wall is really good, and that's one of the desired reasons um, for using freeze drying, is that freeze drying really helps to disrupt the cell and break it open from the inside. So the most accessible ways that people can extract things would be maceration. Maceration by far is the best way, and that's just you chop it up, whether it's herbs or mushrooms. You chop it up and then you let it sit and decoct for around 2 months. 4 to 8 weeks is the typical range, but if you're using heat, then it greatly reduces the amount of time. And if I like to do a combination. So I'll do maceration, and that helps me with maintaining some of the heat sensitive compounds, and allows me to extract some of those heat sensitive terpenes that could be lost from heating it. But some of the compounds aren't soluble at such a low temperature, and so some of those some of those compounds have to be it's just like whenever you're activating cannabis, you have to you have to heat it to activate THC. Otherwise, it's not going to perform the desired function. And so these are certain things that we have to take into account with why there are particular processes and extractions, and why we do particular methods. And so, like I said at the bottom, a combination of these methods can increase potency of desired compounds in a given solution. And so I do the sock slit extraction. And so if you want to go ahead to the next slide, that way I can kind of describe this a little bit better. So on the left-hand side is a setup with a sock slit apparatus. The sock slit apparatus is really that middle part that's labeled extractor, but the bottom is just a round bottom flask, and then the top is a condenser. And so the solvent in the round bottom flask is heated with a heating mantle. And so that's just it could be a water bath, so you can just have hot water, but you have to have a way to consistently heat the water. Or it can be a series of coils. So this can be induction or conduction, depending on what you're using. And so I have glass, and most setups are going to be with glass. But you can do a hillbilly hobo way of setting up a sock slit. And so what it's going to do is it's going to boil the solvent at the bottom. And if you know anything about this type of chemistry and physics, is that you're not going to bring it past the boiling point. Like it's in its liquid phase, and so all you're going to do is change it from liquid to gas. Whenever it goes from liquid to gas, the gas is going to go up, and it says vapor path right there. I don't know how well everyone can see that. I didn't realize how light blue that is, but it's going to go up there and then go into the condenser, and then it's going to cool it back to its liquid phase. So it's only going to be at the threshold of the temperature between liquid and vapor. And so for water, that's 212 Fahrenheit, and for ethanol, it's about 178 to 182. There's a range depending on what is dissolved in the solvent, because what you're dissolving out of the sample is going to concentrate in the round bottom flask. So the vapor, it evaporates and goes up the sidearm tube into the condenser, condenses back from a vapor to a liquid, and drips as a hot to warm liquid over your substrate, whatever it is that you're extracting, whether that is through your through mushrooms or through herbs, whatever it may be. And so you then the liquid collects in that middle chamber until it gets to that. Can you see that bulbous round part right there? Whenever it gets up to that level, it forms a not a vacuum. Brain fart. A siphon. It forms a siphon and then drains it all back down into the round bottom flask, and then it concentrates in that round bottom flask. This is considered a continuous extractor. So it's going to boil, turn from liquid to vapor, and once it goes from liquid to vapor, it's 99.9% pure solvent again. So it's going to go from liquid to vapor, back to liquid, collect on the sample, and then slowly seep into and extract the sample. I like to pre-treat my samples with ethanol beforehand so that whenever I'm introducing the warm solvent, it's able to start immediately pulling a lot of the stuff out of there through it already having dissolved a good portion of the. I know. Hey, Bubble.
Sleepy Time Express. Choo choo.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's able to collect in that vessel until it hits that siphon point. And so as the extraction goes along, it starts off pretty slow until the entire until the solid of the sample, whatever you're extracting, until that solid reaches approximately the same temperature of the liquid that's dripping down on it. But until it gets heated up from the solvent, then it kind of is slow, but then it may siphon every 15 to 20 minutes after that, and sometimes faster, depending on the volume of your stock. So if you give me a second, I can show you.
This is so freaking cool. I'm loving this.
And so this is 1,000 mil, and this is the vapor sidearm tube that comes up, and then there would be a condenser sitting on top. Whenever the level of the solvent reaches up here, it will siphon back, and then there's a tube through the middle, and then it drains into the round bottom flask down here. And so it can sit in here for a good long time, depending on the length of extraction, the solvent. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. That's molecular kinetics. So it depends on the solvent, the material that you're extracting, and also how concentrated your end product is. There's another process that you can do to remove the solvent and just keep the concentrate, and that you would use like sometimes people, like especially in the cannabis industry, they'll use like rotary evaporators, rotovaps, and that's a way that's one of the more efficient ways to do it. And then other people would just use a boilerplate and let it boil off into the ether. And then the two things on the right hand side, the top is the sonicator wand, and you would just put that into a flask or a beaker or a mason jar. They work great, and it would just vibrate at a very high frequency. And it's, like I said, it's great for a pre-treatment step, and it's also a great way to extract stuff that you don't want to really heat up. But there is a bit of a caveat there, which is that cavitation does release heat. just through the process of it's an explosion. So it releases a small amount of heat for a very brief second, but it's something that you would put herbs in and maybe let it go for 5 to 15 minutes. Like it's not something that you're running for a very, very long time. And then the one on the bottom is the one that I was saying. People use that for cleaning utensils, like dental utensils. You'll find those in like dentist's office. It's a great way to sanitize as well as to do an extraction. And those are a little bit more affordable for the at-home extraction. And the sonicator wand, those are pretty expensive. And the soxhlets can actually be pretty reasonable within like the $300 to $700 range. No, it's reasonable, but it's not in the multi-$1,000 range. Like I was starting to lead towards with talking about supercritical CO2. Like that stuff is like tens of thousands of dollars, and you got to have all the solvents, and then you got to have the space for it. Just a whole mess. But I mean, it's good for heat-sensitive compounds. Really good for heat-sensitive compounds.
Wow, James, this is freaking amazing. Thank you for running through all this. So, is this similar? I mean, it's obviously different than like a still and like
Yes.
distillation, but is it yeah, it's just different. That is basically what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. So with distillation, you would have the solvent and the and whatever your and it really depends. You might strain or filter your sample off first, or it may also still be in the solvent as you're boiling it. Like if you're making spirits, you may filter the mash and then boil the mash to get the alcohol to boil off. And the alcohol, again, it's going to boil at a lower temperature than water. So and then there's different things that are occurring with fermentation for making spirits. So like you're going to have your different portions, like their methanol, and methanol has a different boiling point than ethanol, and so it's really important if you're doing stuff like that to really know what you're doing, because you could poison yourself or other people. But with distillation, you're just going to boil it and then cool it into a separate container, not back into the original container.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yes.
And so that's the main difference, is that we're trying to heat up the sample with the solvent, and then at the same time, as it's extracting out the desired compounds, it's going to concentrate in that flask. Let me see if we can see this on here. Because this, oh yeah, those are crystals from Cordyceps militaris, and there we go. Let some light in there. Holy moly!
I must want to see. Put it full screen there. Yeah,
Let me see if I can get some more light through there. That's not really doing a whole heck of a lot, but blinding it. But yeah. So that's the one that I kind of want you to see. It looks like a star. It looks like a fractals on fractals on spirals on spirals. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get like an actual webcam for this so I can have some higher quality. I look like I'm in 320p right now. But yeah, so I do this stuff because I enjoy it. It's I'm learning as I go. I'm doing what I can to provide our community locally and our community through the mycelial interwebs to be able to come together in wholeness. One thing that we had spoken about offline is the Hermetic principles. And the first one is all is mind. And the all is mind. So the way that I understand it is from first principles. The first principle is the creator. That's about all that we can do. Anytime you try to point towards the creator or try to conceptualize or circumscribe, we do the creator a disservice. We profane the creator, because Ultimately, the creator is non-conceptual, non-dual, non-linguistically bound. So we're never going to be able to talk about it, talk to it, talk through it, anything like that. We can just experience it, and that's about it. But we are all that same mind, individuated. So it's like the one. Oh man, I hope I'm not just bumping the mic.
No, no, you're
we're
good.
we're the one that differentiated itself to know itself. That self is self, but that there is this lack of ego that already existed. That is the primary cause of beingness, and to delight in that instead of to go, oh my goodness, it'll bring about a profound shift in perspective. And so I always like to go back to that and not stay too much in the material aspect of things, though we have to honor our material existence because here we are. Because here we are. That's the justification enough. You have to honor it because you're already in it. But you're it. You are what you're looking for. Whether you go to uh, get a guru to wake you up or you start waking yourself up, it's still the same self. But there is this particular thing with the personality construct that is considered the ego self, where we are personally attaching to ideas and forms and giving them more credence than they are. But we are dreaming ourselves awake. And part of it is to realize that we're the dreamer. And some people, I love that Chance is going at like the Gnostic boohoo prison BS, because it's like, dude, it's not a prison. Have you ever felt joy in your life? What are you talking about? This is not a prison. You may feel in prison because you're limited, but that's a good thing, because if you had any more effing power, you'd probably try to exert it over others that are just trying to figure this experience out as much as anyone else. And that's why we're limited in our individuality, is because you give that one guy that thinks that he should sit on the throne too much power, and he's going to use it and abuse it. And so yeah, the concepts of ego is to describe our personality constructs that we revivify with our thinking. And so when we cleanse our thoughts of who we think we are, and we stop performing to be the looking glass self, or we stop trying to be who we think others want us to be, then you get into authenticity. You get into authorship, authority. But being in that place is a holy, humbling place where you don't exist. You don't make decisions. You are just a hollow bamboo. You're just the reed of the flute and a note in the musical score, and that's it. And you become okay with it. Why? Because you wanted to listen to the damn song. You wanted it, and that's the hardest. That's the hardest part about being here, is owning all of that darkness and owning all of that light. People want to go into the light and they get blinded. They get pop. Lucifer blinded you. You got blinded by the light bringer. And then you're back in darkness, because what if you get blinded by light? Where are you? In darkness, because you can't see the. and these are the things that we have to meditate on if we wish to enliven the spirit within our flesh to speak more directly through our minds. That way we can do away with all of the things that we're hurting ourselves with. One of the things that I started to say after a really profound trip was, oh, stubbed your toe on yourself. Any rock that you stub your toe on and you damned yourself. Why? Because you put it there. If you only had faith you could move mountains, well, you'd realize that you did, and you liked where you put them.
Right. Yeah. Dude. Yes. Because we're creating the path like that. And that's one of the beauties of the 3D, I think, is that we have the opportunity to create this reality for ourselves. And you can choose it to be a prison. You can choose it to be a paradise. What is it ultimately? I don't know if I can even say, but I can say I can speak on the things that I've come to realize, and that it is us. It's up to us. And that's at the end of the day what allows me to go to sleep at night. And all my decisions and all my choices and all the ways I choose to treat myself or treat others, it's all on me, and it's all going to come back to me. And it's not about what somebody has done to me. It's, as we talked about earlier, it's how I react to it. And that's been just one of the greatest gifts to learn. And Mario and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And he's been one of the people in my life that has brought a lot of these concepts to my awareness and has helped me to cultivate it and add it into my vocabulary and the way I live my life. And I'm grateful for it, because it's not only helped myself, it helps him and it helps us as a couple. And then in turn, it's helping everybody else that we come in contact with. And you and Elise are doing the same work. And everything you just spilled and shared with us is amazing. And I just want to really thank you so much, because wow, what a wealth of information. And anybody who is wanting to learn, just start learning about mushrooms, how they can use them, and everything else. This is going to be just like a beautiful presentation for people to share around. And wow, good work, my friend. And keep it up,
Yeah.
because this is just beautiful. You have something great going on, and I'm really grateful that you shared it with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to give a big shout out to Mario. Thank you for doing your recent series. The name is slipping me, but seriously, go check it out. What's the name of it?
Oh, True North. Yes.
True North. True North.
Yeah.
Go check it out. I love symbolism. I came into I kind of feel like I like to say I came in through the back door, and like I didn't realize what I was getting into, and so I didn't try to like formally do anything, but I just kind of like picked up the pieces and then started figuring it out. And it's important to find your passion in doing so, because otherwise you'll put, I really do feel like the carnival ride of life is put there to keep this place from getting worse. Like, people that aren't distracted, if they weren't distracted, are in such a dark area of themselves that they would spread that darkness and they would forget the balance. And I don't want to say that people deserve it. That's not it. It's just a part of the process. You may live a dark life for a very long time and wake up. We all wake up. It's death. It's that unnameable, unspeakable. Don't. Oh, how dare you? Like, yeah, man. Start thinking. Start meditating about death. Like I sat with a man that was dying, and it was one of the most profound things, because we didn't really do anything materially. Materially, I was just wiping his bum, keeping him clean, making his lunch, taking him to appointments that he might need to go to. But he was closing accounts. He was forgiving himself. He was seeing something that could only be seen when it's true. And so start looking for that. Do not be afraid of death. It is your lifelong partner. And it's the biggest gatekeeper that any of us would be lucky enough to discover and to embrace. Because guess what? There you are.
Yeah, man. That's beautiful. Your lifelong partner. That's so true. Oh, man. Well, James, hey, can you just tell everyone where they can find you? Anyone who might not know, I have all your links down in the description, but give a little shout out, anything that you're excited about or whatever. Just let the people know how they can get a hold of you guys.
Yeah, so familyfungi.net. Over here. Yeah, so that's a great way to get in touch with us, because you can email us through there. We're also on Instagram at familyfungi. Those are going to be probably the best ways to get in touch with us. We're also on Telegram. Elise and I are part of the Bear community, which is a community started by Owen Benjamin. You can find us on the Beartaria Times app, at Brother Nature Bear for myself, and at Mother Nature Bear for at least no relation, no brother, mother. So we kind of like we found out about that joke, and I was like, hey, we're gonna have to introduce ourselves at like 2 different times. um, but you can get in touch with us through our website. There's a lot of information on there. I intend to put more, and I just sometimes I look out into the internet and I see how corralled it is through search engines and whatnot. And I see a lot of ways that consciousness is already being directed towards certain ends. And so I've been remiss to put more information on our website, but I'm going to do so to hopefully give some clarity to people that aren't buying into being a victim of something, but that they're seeing that they're given an opportunity. And that opportunity is to know thyself on a deeper level so that you can start to heal thyself on a deeper level. The reason that our society looks the way that it is because we have forgotten ourselves. It's that. We forgot ourselves. It's the reason that you can slip into the unconscious and do ill to your brother. It's the reason why kids get spanked. And it's like, what? That's the biggest thing for us is like, we don't want to hit our kids, so we don't. But with that, holy crap, do you have a whole lot of emotion that you have to deal with that no one gave you a place for as a child yourself. Like I started off telling you, Michelle, that I've been having to deal with the fact that I am an emotionally reactive person, and I thought that I wasn't. God dang it! So I'm like, I'm having to take the responsibility of that. I'm not going to call it ownership. That's where my mind was going at first, but I have to take the responsibility that I'm still patterning out old patterns. I'm trying to undermine them so that way I can circumscribe them so that I can understand them and then ultimately allow them to pass. Stop holding on to it. Attachment is suffering. You can find it either through your own experience of you really, really, really want something, then you get it, and then it breaks, and then you feel sad about it. Oh, darn. Well, you were attached. And attachment is part of the suffering of being here because the material world is constantly turning over on itself. It's recycling. It's a torus. It's like things break apart and come together. Yeah. It's magic. And it's hard to describe that when there's so much pain, but that's why it is personal responsibility. Take on as much as you can within yourself, within your community, within your household. If you want to change the world, go home to your family. You don't need to go to a protest. The greatest way to protest is to not fucking participate in the protest. To see that the solution is the way that you're living your life. And if you're living your life that promotes ill, then you reap what you sow. And so that's why I said, mushrooms told me, we're sick and we need this medicine. I don't know who needs it. Sometimes people place an order on my Shopify and I fulfill that order. But more than anything, the medicine that you need is in your cup. Drink your medicine. Stop trying to pass your cup off because you think that it's going to kill you. Guess what? You're already dead. It already happened. You're walking yourself there. And it's fine. And it's fine. Because you're going to wake up.
Bravo, man. Yep. And this work, in my opinion, it never ends because when you find the shadow, you work it out, you talk it out, whatever. 2 months down the road, guess what? There's going to be something else that comes up. And then 4 months, there's going to be something else that comes up. And that's okay. And that's why we're here. That is truly, I feel like that's why we're here. We're here to do the dirty work. We're here to do the hard work. We're also here to experience bliss and beauty and all the lovely things that come from all the hard work. So, it is part of it. And it's just never ending cycle here on that level. And I embrace it, and I think it's glorious, as hard as it can be sometimes. But it's the great work for a reason, and we're here to do it. So might as well do it and not ignore it. Because the more you ignore it, obviously, the worse it gets. And then the more work you make for yourself. So
Yeah, it
you
keeps coming back.
totally,
That-
man,
and,
forever.
and like one last thing, like don't run off in heaven and forget about the people still on earth. Don't peek above the clouds and go, holy crap. I don't know if you've heard the parable of the guy that they found a hole into heaven or something or other, and he tells his friend, hey, give me a boost and let me see. And his friend pushes him up and he climbs himself up and then runs off into the bliss and leaves his friend. So let us remember to extend ourselves to our brothers and sisters when we can, when we're called to. But more importantly, drink the medicine from your own cups.
Yeah. I love that, James. Man, and with that said, I'm going to allow you to enjoy the rest of your evening with your family. And thank you very much again for sharing all
Mhm.
your wisdom. This is not the last time that we're going to be talking on this platform here because, boy, oh boy, I feel like we could just keep going. So
Mhm.
this is great. And at one point, it'd be fun to have both you and Elise on. And maybe we can do a me and Mario, you and Elise or something like that. I want to kind of do
Please.
some more shows like that, even with like James and Najla and me and Mario, and
Yeah.
let's bring these couples together and let's rally. So anyway, yeah, good night, my friend, and I will
Good
talk to you
night.
very soon. And for anyone else still listening, I've got a few updates if you want to stick around for them. But yes, we'll say good night to James and thank you again. Much
Thank
love.
you. Cheers.
Yep. See ya. Whoo! Wowie zowie, right? That was amazing. Oh my goodness. I knew James was going to bring it, and he did, and he brought even more than I expected. And that is just always a freaking blessing and a treat. And with all of that, I do have a couple announcements in the tradition that I've been really liking is ending the show with any updates that I'm wanting to share with you guys. And so next week, oop, going back to the slide. Hold on here. Let's see. Add to stream. All right. So next week's show, SB Elger, my man Sean. I'm so excited to be talking with Sean. We're going to talk about his work with Beth Martins, communitarianism, which is something that he is quite passionate about, and I really enjoy hearing him speak on that. He's just a great guy. Mario and I were able to meet him a few years ago, and just so happened, he's all up in the spider webs, and it was kind of like a reuniting when we all kind of got back together. And Sean is just near and dear to me, so we'll be talking next week, which is February 7th, 4 p.m., same place. And then I have finally launched a Patreon. So for people who maybe you're not interested in buying herbal remedies, maybe you feel like you would like to buy me a cup of tea or, what have you, you can now support me on Patreon. So you can find me patreon.com/thehealinghome. And all the Patreons are going to have access to what I'm like going to call my last Thursday live stream. So every last Thursday of the month, I will be having a live stream with my Patreons where you guys you can ask me questions. I may come at you with a presentation. I may just give you updates about what's going on. If you have specific questions you want to ask me, perhaps about what's going on with you, or you have maybe some herbal questions, whatever. That on last Thursdays of every month, if you're a Patreon, that's where you'll be able to have my undivided attention. We'll probably go about an hour, maybe. We'll see how it goes. And then I'm thinking it'll be a really great way to connect with more people. So check me out on Patreon. Last call for soaps. I may still have a couple left over once this new the full moon comes, which is just in a couple of days now. But yeah, still got some soaps going on for all of y'all. Here's my menu with everything that is still available. I have one bottle of elderberry and reishi mushroom syrup left. So if anybody wants that, you'll have to jump on it because I've just got one left. Wanted to just focus on my mugwort dream team set, which is so near and dear to me. Love it so much. It is a bottle of mugwort tincture, and then it comes with a mugwort anointing oil that is grown in our garden. The anointing oil is made with coastal mugwort, so it has this really nice resinous scent to it. And then the tincture is made with mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, which is much easier on the stomach. The coastal mugwort has a lot more volatile oils in it, so it's more highly scented. So that can sometimes be irritating to the system. So that's why I do that in an oil form instead of a tincture. So if you want to maybe try mugwort out, you can try that set. I also have the fresh herb tinctures. I work on singles. So I've got mugwort, motherwort, St. John's wort, blue vervain, and lemon balm. That is going on here. And then again, as always, michelleshealinghome@gmail.com. If you want any products or have any questions, michelleshealinghome.com to sign up for my newsletter, to maybe see what is going on. I have a running blog there too, where I share recipes and thoughts and all sorts of stuff. Consultations are also available. You can text me 503-568-1569. And last but not least, I have to give, as James did, a shout out to my man Mario and his first episode of True North. What is Northern symbolism? He worked so hard on this presentation and it shows. And I'm so excited for him to be launching this because he is finding his true north with this information, and he's finding where he really loves to be, and that is up in the north in the polar symbolism North Star. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can head to his YouTube channel, Symbolic Studies on YouTube. He's also on Instagram. He is on Facebook. He's on Telegram. So you can find him there. But yeah, really great presentation that he put together for everybody. And with that said, I am going to say goodnight to y'all because this was a lovely stream and I had a really great time. And I will be seeing you guys back here next week if you want to hang out with me and Sean. And yeah, until then, I wish you guys all a really lovely rest of your week. Just said that. So I think it's time for me to go. All righty, y'all. We'll see you soon. Have a good night.